Meet Richie Aprile.
A man kicks open a door in Jersey. He grabs another man by the throat, slams his head into a urinal, drives a car over his body in a parking lot. You have never seen this man before in your life. No one says his name for 3 full minutes. No flashback, no voiceover, no previously on. He just walks in.
Richie.
And somehow, you already know exactly who he is. This is Richie Aprile, and the way The Sopranos introduces him, with nothing, is the single most radical choice in modern television writing. Most shows hold your hand. The Sopranos dares you to keep up. Here's how television normally works. A new character shows up. Another character turns, conveniently, to a third character and says something like, "Oh, that's Dave. Dave went to Harvard. Dave's got a temper. Dave just got back from rehab." You've seen it 1,000 times. It's called expository dialogue, and it exists because writers are terrified that if the audience doesn't know exactly who someone is, they'll reach for the remote. Every show does it. Breaking Bad does it, Mad Men does it, Succession does it. Even prestige dramas, the ones that pride themselves on respecting the viewer, still hand you a little biographical pamphlet whenever someone new walks through the door. Then there's The Sopranos. Richie Aprile, Ralph Cifaretto, Bobby Baccalieri, Phil Leotardo, Furio, Feach Lamanna. These men do not get introductions. They do not get backstories. They do not get a single helpful sentence from anyone explaining who they are or why they matter.
My nephew.
Right in the middle of my story.
There he is.
They walk into the frame as if they've been there the entire time, as if somewhere just off camera, they've been living full lives the show never bothered to film. And the audience? The audience is left to do what audiences almost never get asked to do anymore. Figure it out. Through behavior, through tone, through the way other characters react to them. The Sopranos treats you like an adult at a dinner party where you don't know anyone, and it trusts you to read the room. Let's go back to Richie. Season 2, a man we've never met walks into a pizza place and drives a Cadillac over another man we barely remember. No dialogue tells us Richie just got out of prison. No one says he's Jackie Aprile's brother.
Thought I told you to back the fuck off, Beansy.
No one explains that he used to run a crew, that he resents Tony, that he's the kind of man who holds a grudge for 20 years and compounds it with interest. All of that, every single piece of it, we figure out from watching him move. From the way Tony's jaw tightens when his name comes up, from the way Silvio goes quiet, from the way Junior lights up, because Junior sees a weapon. This is what I call the Beansy principle.
You know, he may never walk again. Never say never.
The show doesn't tell you who Richie is. It shows you what Richie does. And because everyone around him reacts with the exact right calibration of fear, resentment, or opportunism, the character assembles himself in your head, fully formed, without a single expository word.
I know how you feel.
Ralph Cifaretto works the same way. He just shows up in Miami, cracking a joke, laughing too loud. Nobody pulls you aside to say, by the way, this guy is a sociopath who quotes Gladiator and has impulse control issues.
You're the boss. You get to put in anybody you want over the crew.
You're a captain, Ralphie, when I say you're a captain.
You learn it in real time. You learn it the way his crew learns it, the way Tony learns it, the hard way. The show puts you inside the family, not as a biographer, as a guest. And guests don't get briefing packets. Here's the quotable line. The Sopranos is the only show that treats its audience like it's sitting at the table, not reading the menu. But here's where it gets interesting. This technique, this refusal to explain, only works if the writing is strong enough to carry it, and most shows, frankly, aren't. Think about Game of Thrones. Huge cast, complicated politics. People die off-screen and return on-screen, and half the audience is Googling character names between episodes. The density becomes a barrier. You stop watching the story and start doing homework. The Sopranos has just as many characters, more, arguably, but you never feel lost. Why? Because the show operates on a principle most writers are too cowardly to trust.
You know, Ralph had to drop out in the 11th grade to raise his brothers and sisters.
Behavior is exposition. A single look from Paulie tells you more than a 2-minute monologue would. The way Christopher flinches when Tony raises his voice tells you their entire history. The way Carmela pours wine for a guest tells you which side of the marriage she's on that week. David Chase and his writers understood something profound.
Mi Richie Aprio.
Audiences don't remember information. They remember feeling. And if you make them feel the weight of a character in the room, the threat, the charm, the rot, they'll fill in the backstory themselves. In fact, they'll invent a richer one than you could ever write. There's a tiny pattern interrupt buried in this technique too.
Names? In New York, the only old-style boss still in place is Carmine Lupertazzi.
When The Sopranos does break its own rule, when it does stop and explain someone, you notice instantly. The class of 2004 newsreel in season 5, where the show literally stops and tells you who Feach, Tony Blundetto, and the other paroled mobsters are, fans have argued about that scene for 20 years. Because it feels wrong. It feels like the show coughing politely and saying, sorry, we need a second here. And the reason it sticks out is precisely because the show had spent 5 seasons training us not to need it.
Your cousin?
Missed the shit out of him.
There's exactly one character this technique stumbles with, and it's a big one. Tony Blundetto, Steve Buscemi's character.
Who's your cousin again? Tony Blundetto.
Tony Soprano's beloved cousin, supposedly his closest childhood friend, the man whose wrongful imprisonment haunts Tony's dreams.
And guys, this is your uncle, Tony Blundetto.
And we never heard his name. Not once. Not in 4 seasons. 4 seasons of therapy sessions, 4 seasons of flashbacks to the old neighborhood, 4 seasons of family dinners and bada bing strategy meetings, and nobody, not Tony, not Carmela, not Junior, not one cousin at one christening, ever mentions Tony B. Some fans explain this away. They say Tony repressed him, that the guilt of the night Tony B got arrested, the night Tony Soprano ducked out because of a panic attack, was too painful to speak about. And honestly, that reading works. It's consistent with everything we know about Tony Soprano's psychology. The man buries what hurts. But here's the real reason. Season 5 was never supposed to exist. The original plan was for Season 4 to lead directly into the final New York-New Jersey War. HBO pushed for more episodes. Chase had to invent material. Tony Blundetto was, essentially, a character conjured in a writer's room to fill space the show didn't originally have. And for the first time, The Sopranos had to bend its own rule. The class of 2004 newscast exists because the show suddenly needed to introduce 3 major characters at once, and it couldn't pull the Richie trick 3 times in a row. Even the show's best technique has a breaking point, and it tells you something important. The just walk in method isn't laziness. It's a discipline. It requires a world so fully built that a new face can slide into it without a crack.
Tony B. Like a welcome home present.
The moment that world has to be expanded under pressure, the seams start to show. Now step back. Look at what this approach actually accomplishes. When characters enter without introduction, something strange happens to the viewer. You stop watching a show. You start eavesdropping on a life. The camera isn't a narrator anymore. It's a keyhole. And the people on the other side of that keyhole don't know you're there, and they don't care to catch you up. This is the real secret of The Sopranos. It's not the violence, it's not the therapy sessions, it's not even the ending. It's the stubborn, almost aggressive refusal to perform for you. Characters die off screen, storylines vanish. People appear, matter enormously for 6 episodes, and then disappear because, in a real life, people do that. A cousin moves to Florida, a friend gets out of prison, a rival shows up at a funeral and you've never seen him before, but your uncle clearly has, and that's all you need to know. Every great show since The Sopranos has borrowed pieces of this. The Wire pushed it further. Mad Men flirted with it. Better Call Saul built whole seasons on it. But none of them ever trusted the audience quite as hard as Chase did. None of them ever said, with as much confidence, you are smart enough to figure this out. And if you're not, that's fine. The show isn't going to stop for you. That confidence, that radical faith in the viewer is the thing. It's the reason The Sopranos still feels alive 25 years later, while other shows of its era feel like museum pieces. It doesn't explain itself. It just is. The way people are. The way life is. You walk into a room, and the people who are already there don't pause to tell you who they are. You learn, or you don't. Either way, the dinner goes on. The Sopranos didn't break the rules of television writing. It proved the rules were a crutch. Characters don't need introductions. They need behavior. And an audience that's trusted, really trusted, will follow a stranger into any room. So here's my question for you. Which Sopranos character hit you hardest with 0 introduction? Richie in the parking lot? Ralph in Miami? Phil walking out of prison, already looking like he owns the place? Drop the name in the comments and tell me the exact moment you realized this guy was about to change the show. I read every one.